Hi, my name is Savannah Meese, and I'm a student at Colorado Christian University. This is my presentation on a specific strategy that we can use for successful professional learning and adult-based workshops. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is take a look at this picture and think about a couple things. So first, what are some of your initial thoughts on the picture, and what are some feelings that arise when you look at this picture? Last, I want you to analyze how did you come up with, or what processes did you use to think about those thoughts and feelings? So what prior knowledge did you use, and those types of things. When I asked my husband about his thoughts and feelings about this picture, he first thought that the bird is initially smarter than the cat because the bird is on the outside of the cage and the cat's on the inside, where we usually see that reversed. He said the cat's frustrated based off of his facial appearance. It makes him feel happy because he doesn't like cats, and so seeing a cat inside the cage is good for him, I guess. And he also said that this is a good situation of where we could see the little guy won. So it's this is a really good picture to bring up a lot of thoughts and feelings that many people would have that's very different from each other. And this is a segue into or example of our strategy, which is the use of thinking prompts. According to Knight, thinking prompts provide learners with the opportunity to consider the content being taught or introduced, to discuss prior knowledge, and to explore the real world, so both the positive and negative implications of the material being covered. This is a really great way to start a workshop and finish a workshop. It really brings in a lot of prior knowledge. It can initiate some discussion and some basic relationship building between the instructor and the learners. So thinking prompts really are there to get your learners thinking at the very beginning of your presentation. It can be a really great hook, so something to get the learners engaged in right away and really interested to stay focused, or at least give you a chance to start gaining their full attention at the very beginning of a workshop, so that they know that it is actually worth it to be paying attention. Also, we can use this to start looking at all of the learners' prior knowledge. One of the great things that you can do is present something like a picture like I did at the very beginning, and try and think about what the learners are initially thinking about at that situation. So for example, Knight used the example of presenting a picture where a guy looked homeless and there was alcohol involved. However, his learners did not initially think about alcohol, and so then he tied in his perspective of alcohol, which got the learners really engaged and thinking about the different perspectives or different scenarios that you can be seeing through pictures or through situations that maybe you'd see in a classroom, in the street, or in your profession. The main thing about a thinking prompt is that it provides authentic dialogue, and so it provides a really great discussion piece between the learner and the instructor to start creating that relationship. So please, 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 when you use this, try and remember some of those partnership principles that Knight talks about. So some of the different mediums that you can use with thinking prompts are videos, pictures. You could do role play situations where you have volunteers come up and role play through a different situation that you hand them. Or you could use parables or stories, just like Jesus did with his disciples. So what exactly is critical thinking? Critical thinking is what we're actually trying to do when we're using a thinking prompt. And so Alfaro Rivera described it as a purposeful outcome thinking that requires knowledge, skills, experience, inquisitiveness about reasons behind their actions, independent thinking, and sensitivity to emotion. So it's really getting learners to think about what is actually happening and the reasons behind that. So why is critical thinking important? There's many different reasons that we can look at, but we're going to look at 3 of them. So it creates active thinking and active learning with all participants in the workshop. It also challenges deeper understanding instead of just basic smaller or simple level thinking. It also allows the learner to create their own understanding of the content being covered instead of just initially automatically accepting the instructor's perspective on whatever is being covered. Some ways that you can do this to assess their thinking is through formative or summative assessments, which we typically see in more classrooms. You can also have great dialogue and discussion, or just take back feedback that you're getting from your learners. So one tool that I've actually used is Bloom's taxonomy, and in the 1950s, Benjamin Bloom created these, and what they are is it is a tool for classifying learning goals, objectives, and standards. And so the table moves from the bottom up, and if you look at the bottom, it is moving from a lower to a higher level thinking, so more simple to complex. And in the 1990s, the late 1990s, one of his students revisited and revised this taxonomy to be more applicable to seeing how students actually learn. So it's the knowledge and cognitive processes that the learner uses. So now it's in a verb-based content, and one big change was that synthesis was moved to the top and it was renamed creating. So one thing that I would want you to do is to look back at the picture that we did at the very beginning and create a question that would apply to the top 3 layers of the Bloom's taxonomy. So an example would be to use words like design or build for create, judge or test for evaluating, and categorize for analyzing. So some examples might be compare and contrast emotions that you see in the two animals. How would you feel if you were the cat or the bird? And what is your theory on how this situation happened? To finish up, I would want you to do a 3, 2, 1. So what are 3 things that you discovered? And I'd like for you to share these in the discussion. What are 2 things that you found interesting? And what is maybe one question that you have remaining? A bonus one would maybe be that what is one thing that you would want to try with this information in your own profession or own workshops that you would be doing? Albert Einstein once said a great quote that applies to critical thinking, that education is not the learning of facts, but training the mind to think. Hope you enjoyed.